All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining the Royal We Live, guys. We're going to get started in just a second here. I want to go ahead and allow a couple seconds for people to get on. And we're going to be talking about addiction, guys. Tonight, we're going to be talking about addiction to narcissistic abuse, addiction to the love and relationship of narcissistic abuse. We have a lot to talk about, guys. For those of you who are wondering why it's so difficult to stop thinking about the narcissist, why it's so difficult to stop obsessing, why you want to see them, why do you want to talk to them, why is it just not good enough to go no contact and stay away? We're going to talk about that on this episode of the Royal We Live. So I'm looking forward to talking with you guys. I'm going to give just a few seconds here for people to jump on and sign on so that you don't miss out on what we're going to be talking about. Hi, how are you, Missy Joy? Hey, Taylor, what's going on? Hi, Maureen. Hi, Truly Online. What's going on? Hi, Regina. Hi, Anita. Taylor, thank you for being here. Free to be. How's it going, everybody? D. I've got to get back over here and catch D real quick. D, how are you? Everybody, I want to welcome D, even though I do not have D as part of the images yet. D is going to be a new moderator. And so we talked this afternoon. I'm excited to have her as a moderator on the show. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started right now. I want to let you know if you're new to the Royal We, you can contact me at any time. The telephone number is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. And I'm going to take phone calls in just a minute. But first, we're going to talk about this idea, this concept of being addicted to narcissistic abuse. I know we don't like to talk about addiction. We like to stay away from these things. But this question comes up time and time again, guys. Why do you find it so difficult to stop loving the abusive narcissist in your life? Why is it so difficult to stop thinking about them, to stop desiring them, to start having these feelings towards them? Well, there is actually reason, and I'm not talking about just because it's in your mind, but there's actually a chemical reason that's going on in your body that also helps aid in your difficulty in letting go. We're going to talk about that right here. So let's go ahead and jump right in, guys, and then we'll get into taking the phone calls. All right. So first and foremost, guys, let's go ahead and talk about the addiction. I'm going to go ahead and get my notes up here. Now then, guys, when we talk about addiction comes from the Latin word addictus, which means slave or bound to, right? And this is an idea of an image of what it feels like to be involved in this relationship. You feel enslaved to it and bound to it, meaning it's difficult to break away from it. That's that Latin word addictus, where we get the word addiction from. Now, how do you know if you are suffering from an addiction? Well, there's 3 criteria here that's going to let you know that you actually are suffering from an addiction. The first one is a constant craving for the object of addiction. Now, it's important that I mention the object of addiction. Okay, we're going to talk more about this in just a minute. But if you have this constant craving for the object of addiction, okay, that's one criteria. The second criteria is you have a loss of control over this craving, meaning when you have an episode of this craving and you can act out of this episode of this craving and you really don't have any control. You can tell yourself no, but you still do it anyways, type of a thing, right? You really don't have control over it. Number 3, you have continued involvement with the object despite adverse consequences. Okay. Now, this explains a lot of you and myself and as well in the past when we would constantly be involved with these abusive people, despite knowing that there would be a consequence, despite knowing that there was going to be a fight or an argument. Okay. There's continued involvement in it. And so these things right here are basically, if you're suffering from these 3 things, then you could be suffering from an addiction. Okay. And we're going to talk more about this, why this addiction exists. Why is there even an addiction to such a horrible thing? Why is there an addiction to an abusive narcissist? How does this happen? This is a great question, and it's so important to talk about this. So let's go ahead and get more into this, guys. Can we get a little bit deeper? Let's get deeper. All right. I got to go back and forth here with my notes here. Okay. So now we normally don't like to talk about addiction, guys, and there's a reason why. There's a misconception that addiction has to do with just drugs and alcohol, and that is not true whatsoever. It's not just related to drugs and alcohol. As a matter of fact, drugs and alcohol and chemical and substance abuse, these things right here are simply objects of addiction. Okay, they're not the addiction itself. It's the objects of the addiction. Now, it's important to understand that there's a lot of research out there being done about addiction and what it is and what causes it. So when we talk about these things that we commonly associate with addicts, we first and foremost just go straight for drugs or straight for alcohol, straight for the hardcore stuff that leaves people homeless and jobless and wrecks their lives. And yes, those are horrible bad cases of addictions, but these things, these drugs, these alcohols, sex, whatever it is, are objects of addiction only. They are not the addiction. We're going to talk more about that. There's also food. Food is another form. It's an object of an addiction. Coffee can be an object of addiction. Work can be an object of addiction. Relationships, love, all of these things can be objects of addiction. So when we say objects of addiction, what does this mean? The addiction itself is actually what's happening inside of you. Okay. These things that we're talking about, the drugs, the alcohol, food, sex, whatever, these are not the addiction. They're the object of addiction. What these things do is trigger something inside of you. And what's inside of you, what's produced inside of your body, is what the addiction is. You follow me on that? We're gonna keep going, okay? But catch up with me here. What's happening inside of you? There's chemicals being released inside of you that is the addiction. It's not the food, it's not the drugs, it's not the alcohol, it's not the sex, it's what's happening inside of you. Your body is producing something that is the addiction. We're going to talk more about why this is. So, guys, the important thing to understand is that what happens inside of your body is there is a release of extremely powerful chemicals, okay? And some of the chemicals, I'm only going to mention a couple of them. There's dopamine, which is an obvious one. You've heard of dopamine. There's also adrenaline. There's different types of chemicals that our bodies naturally produce, and we're going to talk about why, briefly talk about why our bodies produce these, okay? They're powerful chemicals. Some of the most powerful chemicals known to mankind. Forget the drugs out there. These chemicals that are produced inside of your own body are the most powerful substances known, period. All right. As far as what they can do and how they can make you act. Okay. And so the release of these powerful chemicals is triggered by your limbic system and it's produced inside of you. And so what you're addicted to, like I said, I'm going to repeat this again. What you're addicted to is not outside of you. So in the case of the abusive narcissist, your addiction is not to the abusive narcissist. That's not what you're addicted to. It's not to the person. What you are addicted to is inside of you. It's what chemicals are being released. It's what's being produced in your body. All right. Now, these necessary chemicals, and they are necessary, we're going to talk a little bit about that here, are released into your body, creating all of the sensations that accompany your experience. Okay. So these chemicals inside your body create the feelings, they create the cravings, they create the desires. These internal chemicals are needed and they serve a purpose. Okay. But we have to understand these chemicals like dopamine, adrenaline. We have to understand them so that we can manage them and control them so that you don't become controlled and enslaved by the chemicals inside of your body that your body produces. And this goes to back to the beginning, being enslaved and being bound, which is what the terminology addictus or addiction is. It's being enslaved, being bound. Okay. If we can learn how to control and manage the chemicals that our bodies naturally produce in certain situations, then we will overcome certain forms of addiction. Now, here's where we get into the addiction part. Now, our brain registers pleasures in the same way. There's a pleasure reward system. So things like alcohol, drugs, sex, money, food, these things create a perceived pleasurable experience through one or more of the five senses that you have: touch, sight, sound, smell. These things are these things come in, they allow they produce these chemicals, right? And you recognize something as pleasurable, as a reward. All right. Most people think that dopamine, this is important to understand about dopamine. Most people think that dopamine is released during something pleasurable only, and what they're discovering is that that's not true. The dopamine is actually it's a chemical that works itself back to itself. So when you release a little bit of dopamine, it's not just a pleasure uh, transmitter. What it does is it creates literally what's called motivation. It creates inside of you a drive. Dopamine works to motivate you. So when you get a little bit of that pleasure and that pleasure's over, more dopamine starts to kick in your body and starts to create motivation and drive to get more of that pleasurable experience. Okay. Now, why do we have this? This is a good question. A lot of you might be asking, and I was asking myself this: why do we have these powerful chemicals that motivate us to feel itself again, right? Why would dopamine want to create neurotransmitters of motivation, right? Constant flow of dopamine. Why would it want to do that to bring us back to that feeling again, even if it's bad for us? Okay. So here's what I came up with. This is just a royal we example. So take from it what you will. But I believe this isn't scientific or anything like that, but I believe it is a fail-safe mechanism in our bodies. Okay. Now follow me on this. We are designed to live in these bodies of flesh. And if you believe in a creator, then you know that we have we're designed and we're supposed to be here for a certain amount of time. We have certain needs that are required because we are in flesh, right? And so we have basic needs. And so I look at these things, these chemicals, as fail safes. Okay. What do I mean by fail safes? Well, let's go back to talking about food. This is the best way I can give you an example here. Uh, Food at one time, okay. Food is for survival. First of all, let's mention that we have to eat, right? We have to eat. Do we look at food as a reward? As something pleasurable? Sometimes, but do we look at it as a reward? Not really anymore. And why is that? Well, it's because nowadays we have Taco Bell, McDonald's, whatever, around the corner, right? On every single corner. So we don't look at food as a reward. We don't have to try very hard to eat. We don't have to try very hard to go and get food these days. But guys, it wasn't always like that. Okay, there was a time where people had to get up and go out and harvest their own food and grow their own food, and they had to go and hunt animals, and they had to take guns and go and shoot them. And before there was guns, they had to go out and take sticks and rocks and throw those at animals and wrestle them or whatever and try to bring home something to eat. So if you take that into consideration, I want to ask you, would eating and food be a reward? Absolutely. And this would explain why they probably had big festivals and celebrated and had big barbecues and luau's with the whole neighborhood and the tribe coming together to eat, because it was an epic event to go and get that food. Blood, sweat, and tears, and you know what I mean? And all this stuff is they tried to get some meat. They went out with their bare hands and wrestled some fast, wild animals with big teeth and big claws and wrestled it down and brought it home. And they all celebrated and feasted together. And it was a rewarding experience. Now, that rewarding experience is that release of dopamine. And what that does is inside the body, it creates that constant drive, that motivation. Do it again. We have to do it again. We have to eat. Because if there wasn't that fail safe, that mechanism inside of us that motivates us, then we would all just wither away and there would be no motivation to go out and get food, and people would have withered away and just died. They wouldn't have motivation for anything. So instead, they have the pleasure and the reward. They captured an animal. They grew their food. They did the work. They ate it. It was a rewarding experience which produced chemicals inside the body, which made them do it again. You follow me on this? I know it's a little bit deeper. It's getting outside of narcissistic abuse, but you got to follow me on this, because this is how it also works with narcissistic abuse, right? So the anticipation, right? And here's the thing, right? Why am I talking about how they used to capture food? Okay. Let's go back to today's world. We have McDonald's and Taco Bell and whatever stuff on around us all the time. This stuff is what you can call low hanging fruit. It's just there, right? It doesn't mean that our reward system doesn't go away. We still have those same instinctual, motivational chemicals inside of our body. But now it's just driving us to go to the low hanging fruit. Instead of having to go out and hunt our own food and do whatever, we just go to McDonald's. But that motivation's still there, right? The motivation hasn't gone anywhere. It's a part of our design. It's inside of us. And we need to understand that motivational drive, that chemical motivational drive. All right. Now, the anticipation of most of these types of rewards increases the level in of dopamine in the brain. That's what we were talking about. So it increases the motivation. So as we anticipate things like eating or getting more money or sex or whatever, we can start to increase the motivation for it. The dopamine starts to flow even more for that reward again. Okay. Dopamine induces an appetitive behavior, also known as an approach behavior, and a consummatory behavior. So if we don't understand this chemical, and the chemical is what you're addicted to, it's this dopamine release. Again, it's not the object, okay? It's not the person, it's the chemical that's produced inside of you. Now, how do we break ties with the pleasure altogether? How do we break ties with this, right? Well, we have to retrain ourselves as to what and this is the beginning. I'm going to wrap this up and then we'll go into taking some phone calls. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. We have to retrain ourselves. We have to retrain our own reward pleasure center, the limbic system. We have to retrain it as to what we want to assign as being rewarding and pleasurable. So instead of going out and trying to get and find these things and making that the reward for our life and pleasure for our life, we have to put forth the effort to reverse it. So instead of going out and trying to bring in these things that we celebrate, we need to give out, live from inside out and find the pleasure and make that the reward. We literally train our bodies, we train our minds, we train our limbic systems to see the reward as us living outward from within, guys. It's living from the inside out. It's finding pleasure in that. Now, guys, it's not easy, but we have to understand something here, that our limbic system, these motivational chemicals, dopamine, it doesn't rule our life. It doesn't govern our life. We are, and you are, more than your body. You're more than your flesh. You're more than your mind, right? We have the ability to think about our own thoughts. We are outside of all of that stuff. So you are in control. It just takes that effort. It takes that work, and it takes that time, right? This is talked about also in the Bible. If you look at the ancient writings of Paul oftentimes talked about this conflict that he had within himself. He mentioned that he was at war with his flesh. What is this war he was talking about? The members of his body were fighting one another. I think he was doing the best job he could in that ancient day to try to understand the chemicals that were produced inside of his body that were motivating him towards some things in life, but he was having to be above that and say, no, that's not what we're going to do. Instead, we're going to live out this way, and I'm trying to retrain you, right? He was trying to indicate that he was retraining his own mind and his own body to do something completely different. That's what we have to do. It's possible, but this is what we need to do, guys. Anyways, I hope that this made sense to you. It's really deep when you start to look into addiction, start to break away from the ideas that addiction is only based on certain things and drugs and alcohol and stuff like that, and instead realize that addiction is actually it's far deeper. It's something that we all battle with because we all have these motivational drive. We all have this motivational drive inside of us, guys. All right. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone line. I'll put the telephone number up there. If we can have some of the moderators go ahead and share the phone number. If you have not done so yet, and the phone line is open, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts as to what you think about this. I know I went over time a little bit with my with my lesson tonight, but yeah, so there we go. I know we went over time, but while we're waiting for a phone call, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to the moderators tonight. I would like to go ahead and give a big thank you for Blue. Thank you for being there for the group tonight. Thank you for being a moderator in the chat room. I appreciate that so much. Blue is doing amazing things just for the Royal We Live. She's just doing incredible. So I want to thank you so much, Blue, for everything that you do. Taylor Zabel, I saw you here. Hi, Taylor. How are you? Taylor is also an incredible moderator. She is there to welcome you, to talk with you, to help you guys out, and just really appreciate everything that they are doing for Justice and Truth. If you are there, thank you as well. For Justice and Truth is also a moderator here. And then also D Doll. I do not have an image put together as of yet, but D Doll is also a moderator now, and I'll be working on the image for her for probably this weekend. So we'll get her up. But she's also, you'll see her welcoming you and saying hi and helping out. So thank you guys so much. Yeah, there you go. And guys, if you guys are interested, and like I said, you're welcome to contact me right now and talk about. And Blue does have a Facebook support group, by the way, just to let you know. We have a call from Maryland. We're going to go ahead and answer. Hi, you're live on the Royal We. Thank you for calling.
Hello, Kevin, and hello, Royal We family. I need your advice.
What's going on?
Well, I had this is really weird. I had a friend of like 20 years, and she's moving from the area, and she's bipolar, and sometimes she's really depressed, and when she has manic episodes, she gets really abusive, and so anyway, so anyway, it was really upsetting last week. I never realized that she was a narcissist until I like really listened to your show last night when you were listing all of the symptoms of narcissistic abuse. Uh, that you were pulling the stats up. So as I was listening to that, I was thinking, oh my gosh, another narc, really? She came over to my house when I had a fever. I was so sick with a fever, and thinking she was going to help me, she actually pulled a chair up and started verbally abusing me,
Mm.
and bragging that she's on top of her game, and she said, I'm in alignment with God and the universe, and you're not. I'm thinking, oh, here we go.
Right.
And I didn't say a thing. I didn't say a thing, Kevin, because you don't really argue with someone that is is talking such nonsense
Right.
and saying, "Oh, I love to get drunk and this and that." I'm like, "Great, okay." So, like, what I thought she was years ago, she's really not. She's being fake. She even set up a Facebook page with a fake name. Who does that? And
Right.
acting like she's holier than thou, but she's really. She accused me of being over sexual, which was projecting because she's she's having affairs with married men, but doesn't tell anyone. And so, anyway, the question is what the advice I need from you and the Royal We family is. She's moving, and actually, it's God's doing me a favor here, isn't He?
Mm-hmm.
And she texted me tonight and said, uh, "Sorry, I've been so busy packing." And she's acting like nothing was wrong after she totally attacked me when I had the fever in here. I mean, I could have gone on to tell you everything she said, but I think you get the picture. And she wanted to know when she could get together to say goodbye. Give me some advice and think tell me something that you think I should say in a text so I don't need to say goodbye to her and I don't need to see her again. What do you think I should do?
And honestly, I don't think this is something that, when we look for this, we want to make this one comment that is going to really just kind of knock them out of their chair and get them to knock it off and leave you alone, or to shape up, right? And so you really have to, first of all, before I can tell you what would work the best, you need to decide what it is you're trying to accomplish. Okay. So at this point in the relationship, either one of two things that I'm hearing from your conversation with me. You're either want to go the extreme route, which is you know who this person is and you want nothing to do with them because you're tired of it, you're over it, and your life is going to be better without them. In which case, I would simply just start backing out, saying you're busy, you can't talk. You know what I mean? Just do the things that you need to do to stay away. Or if you do want to remain friends in some way, shape, or form, then you just need to step up, be honest, and say, listen, don't come around here accusing me of being overly sexual and this and that. It's ridiculous. I'm getting kind of tired of it. I don't like the game playing. And see how she responds. If she tells you, oh, you're crazy and you're this and you're that, then you say goodbye. I don't need that. Right. But you have to be able
Yeah.
to find out if it's something that she'll listen to you and she'll understand. Right. So it's hard to know just based off of a couple of episodes of things that she's been saying to you. And how many years have you known her now?
20 years.
Right. So it's hard to know.
That's
Like
a
if
long time.
okay, and if your whole relationship's been like that, then my question to you would be, why are you still hanging out with her? But if this is something where it's
No, it
more
was one.
new, okay. If it's just
Yeah, it was one major big episode and then
sure,
this one. So this is the second manic
okay.
episode,
So
and
so this is where you need to stand up, and this is a good thing for you to do. It's a good practice, right? When you're in her company, say, listen, if I'm going to be here, we don't talk like that. And you have to put your foot forward and just be able to be honest and say that and see what the response is, right?
yeah,
If she's in agreement with you, then congratulations. Like the Bible says, congratulations, you've won your sister over. You've won your friend over, okay? But if she says, screw you, you're too sensitive, right? Then you're dealing with somebody that you probably don't need to be hanging out with anymore. You just need to say,
yeah.
listen, I don't need this. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
having a feeling it's the latter of the two because I sent an email to her brother and sister because apparently she told her brother and sister all this stuff about me and tried to turn friends against me.
Right.
So, just really nasty stuff. So she said that she would talk to me next week and that's after she moves. So I really don't want to have any confrontation with her. I don't want to see what her motivation was for
Right.
what she said. I want her to have a peaceful move to wherever she's moving, and I don't really want to deal with that. But so I want to really not see her, but be compassionate and empathetic, which she has no empathy, and
Right.
I just want her to peacefully move. And I want to back away from the relationship because with bipolar disease and drinking on top and taking antidepressants and half falling asleep at the wheel, do I really have any business being in this relationship
Not at all.
doing things
Not at
that
all.
I shouldn't be doing?
No.
So, yeah. So when I thought about that, Kevin, because you say that a lot, I listen to your show religiously every night, and I get a lot from it, and you'll be getting a donation from me soon because I get so much from you. I don't think I want to be in this relationship anymore. I think it's too destructive for me.
Then
So, but
that's fair
what do
enough.
you think? Kevin? What do you think I should say in a text? Um,
Again, so already, right? I'm going to tell you, this is you're going down the wrong path, right? With this,
okay.
what should I listen? These aren't situations where we need to start drawing out these Dear John letters. right?
No, no, not a letter. But she
Or
wants to come and
a
say
dear
goodbye
John,
to
a
me.
dear John message or a dear John text or any of this stuff,
Uh
right?
huh.
Because what
Uh
it
huh.
does, depending on the level of bipolar personality disorder you're dealing with, what it does is open the door and invite a fight. It invites
Right.
a confrontation. That's the tactics that invite the exact thing that you want to avoid. Okay. So
Mhm.
you're going to have
Yeah.
to take a different approach. And I know that it's somewhere in all of our minds, it seems like that's what we need to do. We need to do the right thing and write this big old long, goodbye letter. So here's the thing is that, in all honesty, I think that the goodbye letter that you want to write is more for you than for them. And so I would encourage you to write a letter but not give it to them. So if you want to write a goodbye
Yeah.
letter
Yeah. No,
and do all the reasons why you think that you guys should stop hanging out, do that for
no, no, no,
yourself.
no, no, no. I don't. No, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
You know.
Then as far as
Yeah. I
actually
didn't want to do
physically,
that.
then as far as that, but it is a good thing to do for yourself if you need to. But
Yes.
don't give it out. Just keep it for yourself. These are the reasons. Boom, 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 boom. Just so you can get closure, because this is the reality of your relationship. But as far as
Yeah.
actually physically dealing with her, you're going to have to just say, I'm busy and I can't do this. I can't do that. And you're going to have to make yourself busy, right? You're going to have to find things to
Yeah.
do. You're going to have to start to
Mhm.
live your life. Okay.
Right.
When the fights come and the yelling and the screaming, and this is where you're going to have to stand your ground, set your boundaries. I don't allow that. Oh, well, you're selfish in
Yeah.
this. And we can disconnect now. Okay. Because you
Yeah.
don't need that.
Right.
That's the best way to go about it. However, by writing out all their lines and pointing out all their writing out your reasons, pointing out all their flaws, and saying for this reason and that reason I can't see you anymore. Trust me, you're begging for a world war with them, and they're gonna throw hurtful things back at you, telling you how overly sexualized you are, how sensitive you are, how selfish you are, how this is just what you're dealing with. This is why you cannot approach them and try to say goodbye like you would to a normal person. It doesn't work. So you just have to
Yeah.
take the
It
steps.
doesn't.
You have to take the steps, make yourself busy, make it difficult for them to get supply from you, and they'll go away and eventually on their own. Supply is getting you to engage and feeling powerful around you. So
Ah.
whether you're serving them or you're fighting with them, either way, they're getting something from you. To them, you're enmeshed in their world and they like that. So keep that in mind when you think you're yelling at them saying, get away and I don't want to be with you, and you're fighting, and before you know it, 30 minutes goes by and you're standing in the same spot in the same stupid argument with them. Just know that
Yeah.
they're getting something from that. You're playing right into their
Yeah.
plan. All right?
I totally hear you, and that's exactly why when I had a fever and she was reaming me out for ridiculous things on a rant, I stayed perfectly silent. She didn't know what to do with that. She left.
Yeah,
So I'm going to go no contact,
right.
and I'm going to be very busy, and I'm going to send a brief text and say, I'm so busy. I think the last time that we talked, that would be a fine enough goodbye. We don't need another long, drawn out goodbye. I wish you the best. Have a safe trip, and
Right.
I'm leaving it at that. I don't need drama in my life. I'm getting too old for this.
That's it. That's it. Well,
So I
thank you.
think that's what I'm
Yeah.
going to do.
Sounds
And
good.
thank you. Keep putting those videos out because
I will.
you have no idea the people that you're helping that tell me that they're listening to the Royal We. So
Thank you.
thank you for your advice. I'll hang up and let somebody else jump on.
Right on. Thank you for
Thank
calling.
you, Royal We family. All right. Bye bye.
Good night. All right, guys. Yeah, no, it's very typical that people want to know what are some, and the phone line is back open now, guys. People want to know, how do I get out of the relationships? What should I say? How do I get out of it? And it's very hard. I say it all the time. It looks like we had a call from Michigan, but it just it didn't go through, or they hung up. But it's not something that you want to. Sorry about that. The phone did go off again, it looks like, but for some reason it's call back again, caller from Michigan, if you're still there. Um, this is not something when you're getting out of these relationships, it's not something that you need to announce some kind of a goodbye or anything like that. It just doesn't work with these types of relationships. You just need to go about living your own life, and that's how you do it. That's how you get out of this relationship. And we're going to take a call from New York. Caller from New York, you're live. Thank you for calling the Royal We.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I have been watching your YouTube channel, trying to find a way to explain to my dad how do you convince someone. You see, I had been in one of these type of relationships, got myself free and healthy, and I see it coming a mile away, in which now my 87-year-old dad has gotten involved. He lost his wife. He was in grief. He was alone, and a 37-year-old woman came into
Oh,
his life, and
wow.
you saw it. You saw it a mile away, and you were happy for him in the beginning because you thought that it was uplifting for him. He was getting out of his grief. He felt good, but at the same time, now what has happened is she's sucking him monetarily.
Right.
He believes that this was all about love,
No, yeah.
and it's not.
Right.
And now that she's gotten everything that she wanted from him monetarily, a home, a house, had the place furnished, and all of this, now, of course, he's not the same man that she met. He's changed. He's and he's just so desperate to be uh, in her company that even if she calls up and says, "Hey, can you do this or can you do that?" He'll drive over to her place and do whatever it is that's necessary that she needs just to be in her company.
Right.
And it's very sad to see your father going through this. And there's no way that I can tell him honestly what I feel because
Right.
he doesn't see it.
Yeah.
We've tried. We
Yeah.
have, a couple of kids in the family
You
that
can't.
have tried,
You
and
can't.
he'll
You
ban
can't.
you
You can't.
from.
You can't. You can't. You can't. You can't tell him. He's not going to listen to you. And
Right.
I'm gonna tell you this too. It's at this point, you know, there's nothing you can do about it. Okay. Your father is going to make his decisions, and he has his reasons for making his decisions. Okay. It's not obviously you want to protect him. Obviously, you look at the situation differently. However, it's not it's not something that you can meddle with or get involved in because your dad's going to look at it as you trying to be a controlling person over his life, and he will reject you and he'll stop
Yeah.
you. You don't want to do that.
Right.
You're going to have to let go, as painful as it is. So, let me ask you a couple questions here. Are you married?
No. 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 No.
Do you
I'm
have
I'm
a
now the caretaker.
do you have a
I'm
family of
not
your
the
own?
caretaker. No. 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 I have
Okay.
now, because I don't.
So,
I have
right.
now stepped into the role of being a caretaker,
Right.
and so I have to sort of
This
step
makes
by
sense. Well,
on the side.
this makes sense. This makes sense, and you can't do that, right? This makes sense because you don't have a family
Yeah.
of your own, which you should. Okay,
Right. Right.
you should be fighting for and taking care of your own husband
I got you.
in this
Right.
manner. But
Yeah.
because you don't have that, you're taking
Exactly.
this role and you're bringing it to your father. It doesn't belong there. And if
Right.
your father is even at this age making mistakes, and like I said, you have to. I'm sure he has his reasons. He's in his 80s. For all you
Right.
know, maybe he wants to experience some more fun before he calls it quits.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So
Exactly.
it's not in your play, even though you see right through it, and you're absolutely right. I wouldn't
Right.
argue that with you. It's not going to be a good situation for you or for your dad to step in there and stop it and try to run and control his life for the remaining time that he has.
Yeah, no. I don't want to control. I
All right.
just wish that I could give him a little tidbit of info. I try to reflect upon what I see, what I had with
It's
my
hard. Yeah.
relationship,
What I tell people,
but it.
I'm going to share something with you. What I tell people when it comes to narcissistic abuse, because I take phone calls a lot, and I have taken calls from people who had pleaded with me and begged me to contact other people. I had a woman who wanted me to contact her son. And I'm not saying this is
Mm,
you, but I'm going to share this story with the community real quick.
I
I don't
yeah, of course.
I don't do that. I told her I'm contact your son for what? And this woman had this accent. I'm going to do my best to repeat the accent. It was because my son he's married to a narcissist and he does not know it, but I see right through it his wife and she's a narcissist. And I said, "Whoa, well, if she's and how horrible." She was saying how horrible this woman is. She's horrible to my son and he does not know and I'm so afraid. And I said, "Well, your son should be calling me." Well, he's not going to
Mm,
call you. He doesn't see it. He does not understand. He
he doesn't
doesn't
see it.
see it. And I'm like, what do you mean he doesn't
Right.
see it? If she abuses him, then he should be wanting to call me. No, he doesn't. And so what she goes, he loves her. And then I knew right away what was going
Mm,
on. I said, he loves her. He loves this person who you say is so
mm-hmm.
abusive. That makes no sense. No, it's because he just does not see how narcissistic she is. And so I finally said, listen, no, I don't do that. I don't call people and tell them that they're with a narcissist
Right.
and they need to wake up. If your son wants to contact me, that's a different story. And she says, if I
Mm-hmm.
get my son to contact you, you talk to him? I said, absolutely. 5 minutes later, I get a phone
Right.
call from this guy. And he said,
Mm-hmm.
hello. And I said, hi. And he goes, yeah, my mom just called me and was screaming at me to call you for some reason. And I said, oh, okay. I said, your mom, I got the phone with her. She's worried about your marriage. She thinks that there's a problem. And this guy said this, the only problem is my mom. She
Is
has
your
been
mother?
she has been meddling in my marriage
But
and making my wife
right.
miserable since the day we met. And I got it. And she
Mm-hmm.
and then I gave him praise. I said, "Listen, good for you for sticking up for your wife because that's your first
Mm-hmm.
responsibility." There's a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
out there that get that twisted. There are moms that say that they think that they're number one in their son's life and they're not. It's a sign that they have something went wrong somewhere, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
and I know, like I said, this isn't that extreme of a case, but before it gets there, put that in check. Remember, your relationship with your dad is not a relationship of unification. There's responsibility there and there's honor there. That's what the Bible talks about. Honor your mom and
Mm-hmm.
dad, honor
Mm-hmm.
the decisions they make, be responsible, help them
Right.
when they need help, but there's no
Right.
unification. You can't treat him as though I need to make sure you do everything this right way, and because
Mm-hmm.
what you do affects me and that type of unification doesn't exist there, right? It
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I thank you. I thank you for your time, and I sort of it's almost like trying to convert someone who's a drinker, and insisting that they go to Alcoholics Anonymous, otherwise,
Right.
and threatening that you can't. They have to see it themselves. But
Right.
it's just I was wondering if I could. I don't know, but it's up to him. If this is what gives him pleasure, but when
Exactly.
I
Right.
overhear conversations, I hear the abuse that goes on, and I just cringe, and I guess I just have to sort of like I don't know
It's
what
cringe.
step away,
It is
step
cringe-worthy.
away.
You step away. But I
Yeah,
agree with you. It
I
is
got to step away.
it's cringe-worthy. You
Mm-hmm.
trust me, you don't want to get into what your dad and that girl are probably doing.
Right,
It'll make you
right,
vomit. But like I said, that's why you
right.
have to draw the boundaries. Where you have to draw the boundaries is where you protect yourself from even the knowledge and understanding of what they're doing. Let your dad know I'm here for
Hmm.
you if you need some help with
Yeah,
something, but I'm not going to
it
get involved with this little fling you've got
exactly.
going on.
Right,
All right.
right,
All
right,
right.
right. Okay, I thank you for your time. I
Right on.
appreciate it and everything you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, it's very tough. I know it's very tough, especially when you deal with loved ones and trying to figure out what can you do? How can you get in the middle? How can you get involved? And at some point you realize that you can't. It's not your place to get involved. And the phone line is open, guys, but I also want to let you know that a couple of things right now. If those of you who are interested in donating to the Royal We, you're more than welcome to. You can donate through PayPal. I've got a telephone call from Arizona, and we'll make this the last call. Hang on one second. Caller from Arizona. You're welcome to donate through PayPal on the front page of the Royal We YouTube channel. But if you would also like to donate and support the Royal We, you can purchase merchandise. There are Royal We t-shirts and coffee mugs and some really cool stuff. You can find out all of that information in the description box below this video. So if you scroll into the description box, you can find the link to the Royal We merchandise store, and you can support the Royal We while wearing a pretty cool t-shirt, guys. So I wanted to put that out there for you guys. Let's go ahead and take this last telephone call from Arizona. You're live on the Royal We. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Kevin. I guess my question is there ever a point where they will stop making accusations against you or
When you're out of the
doing
picture.
things to trigger you?
When you're out of the picture.
Well, it's an ex-wife and there's 2 little kids.
That's a difficult one because you're never quite out of the picture, right?
Yeah.
So basically what's going to happen is both parties need to move on. All right. So you're going to have to move on in your life. She's going to have to move on in her life. So as you go on and you've got to establish a no contact with her, okay? Not with the kids, but with her. And by no contact, that means you have to do everything in your power not to reach out, not to engage, unless it has something to do with the kids. Your primary responsibility now in the relationship, are you divorced or just separated, by the way?
We're divorced.
Okay, so your primary,
Highly contested custody battle.
exactly, and so your primary responsibility is going to be for the kids. Be the best dad that you can be. That's your responsibility. Allow the custody battle, with the custody battle. Allow the attorneys and the law to do what it's going to do. They're going to allot you X amount of time, your ex-wife X amount of time with the kids. Learn to be okay with that. And know that you're not going to have a civil agreement or anything with your actual wife. You're going to have to just do what the law says. Then make sure that when your time is with your kids, it's about your kids and nothing else.
Absolutely.
Okay. Don't
agree with that.
Don't get involved with any of this back and forth. And they may say, Mom said this and that. You know, in time when they get older, they are going to appreciate you for being their dad and how you moved on in your life. They're going to appreciate her for being mom. They're really going to get annoyed with the person who complains and talks the most. Okay. I know this so well because that was me growing up. I was your kids. All right. I was raised around that. I saw it from both sides. Okay. Both had the stories of whatever took place. All right. But all I wanted was a dad when I was with my dad. And all I wanted was a mom when I was with my mom. It was difficult, but that's really the position that you have. And so you can move on. You can find another woman if you choose to, who hopefully will be a good role model as a woman for your kids, not a new mom, but a role model, right? And perhaps your ex-wife can move on, find a good enough role model. That's all you can hope for is another good role model. Okay, not a dad, because you're dad, and you will always be dad. But now focus on being the best. But focus on being the best dad. Okay.
Okay, well, that's exactly what I've been doing. It's just every time things calm down, something is said or done that brings up drama for no reason, and it's just
expect it.
It's almost comical.
Yeah.
I could sit here and ramble off a bunch of things, and people would go, "No, that didn't happen," or "No, they just don't believe that happened." And when I kill them,
I'd believe it.
They're just like, "What?
Yeah, I'd believe it.
Are you kidding me?" Yeah.
Yeah, you will never be good enough. You will never be giving enough child support. You will always be late. You will always be a liar. All this stuff. I get it. right?
Yeah.
You're going to have to blow off and shrug off as much as that as you possibly can. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, just expect it, that this is a part of a very cruel and nasty separation from a person that from a relationship that
Really
probably
toxic.
shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
often, yeah. So that's it's going to be difficult, but it's possible, right? It's possible as long as you have the right idea, the right mentality about it, which is your responsibility is your kids, right? Not to
Absolutely.
argue and stop her from saying what she's going to say because you can't. You can't, right? Now, you can stop her from having an effect on you, on your future life, and on your kids' life. So, if there's ever a point in time where she's harassing and contacting you and contacting your new partner or whatever, you put your foot down, stop it, right? You do what you got to do to keep
Well,
her keep her away.
she's called the police. We've had welfare checks done. We've had things like that done on us. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, but
It is.
it is what it is.
It'll die down. These people can only do that stuff and make these claims and contact people for so long before even the welfare people and stuff are like, oh, here we go again. Right? So
Right.
these things in time wear themselves out. Right? A lot of this with abusive narcissists is a big initiative push up front to try to win, to demolish you. But if they get no supply out of it, if they get nowhere with it, it dies down, it slows down because it's not doing anything. Right?
Right. But no, she literally is out to ruin me financially.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Everything in between. And
Oh yeah.
when you're dealing with somebody with pretty much unlimited resource in a court scenario, I mean, it gets expensive, and there's only so much you can fight
Right.
with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm glad you called, man. There's a lot of men out there who I know are going through exactly what you're going through. I've heard horror stories. I have. I've heard decent guys who were locked up for a night because of some wild accusations, and then charges are dropped because there's no evidence, and but still the fact that they were, towed away for a night, it's humiliating.
yeah,
You know what I
the
mean?
fact that they were
This stuff is really happens, and I actually last night I did statistics where I talked about narcissistic abuse and psychological abuse that's reported according to national statistics at the NCADV. You can look this up yourself. It's 48.8% men go through psychological aggression, whereas 48.4% of women do. So there's actually a slight, when I say slight, it's like a hair difference more men who experience a form of psychological aggression. Doesn't necessarily mean by a woman, right? Doesn't mean by a spouse. It could be men experience this by their father, by their brother, sister, spouse. It doesn't matter. Any intimate partner, right? But the truth is that men are experiencing this. They're trying, and this is just what's reported. And so more men need to be able to be bold enough to come and talk about this and to get it out and to, ask questions and to be able to try and
oh,
fight and
absolutely,
move on as well. All right.
absolutely. Well, thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank
Have
you.
a good rest
Appreciate
of
your
your night.
call. All righty. Have a good night. All right, guys. I want to thank you guys so much for bearing with me. This was a great evening. It was a long teaching, guys. I didn't know I was going to go on for 15 minutes. Teaching 19 minutes, whatever I went on for, and but I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. There's one more telephone call actually from California, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, just one more caller from California. You're live on the Royal We. We're going to make this a quick one.
Hi there.
Hi.
So, hey, this is Bettina.
Hi there.
What I'm finding, what I'm finding is I've gone 10 years, without getting into a serious relationship. I had an extremely abusive marriage to a person diagnosed with NSPD.
Okay.
And I've been single, and I've dated lightly, and I keep having brushes with people that are on the narcissistic spectrum.
Of course you do.
And here, here this year, for the very first time, I started dating a guy, and I agreed to an exclusive relationship with him. And within 2 weeks, the mask fell off. And
Right.
once again, I'm finding myself ensnared by another narcissist.
Uh-oh. Again.
Yeah,
So your question
again.
is your question, how many narcissists are out there, right? Is that what you're trying to figure out?
Well, what I'm trying to embrace here is how I can get to a place. I know that I'm going to continue because of my empathic personality profile. I know I'm going to continue to attract these creatures, but I really would
Right.
like to attract a decent human being who doesn't want to rip my life apart the second I agree to love them. You know,
Sure.
That's because it's getting kind of old, to be honest with you. I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
And
It's going to take a lot of dating.
I mean, I got really, yeah. And
It's
the
going to
thing
take
is,
a
I don't
lot.
really date that seriously.
It's going to take a lot of getting to know people, right?
Yeah,
And
because it's so frustrating.
it's through getting to know people that you're going to identify who's who and what's what. So, yeah, it's very difficult being single and wanting a partner, especially in this day and age. And I get that. And you have to understand this is exactly why we're doing this program. It's exactly what we talked about last night. It's not that you are, because you're an empath, that you are for some reason a target for narcissists. That's not it. Okay. The reality is that we live in a world that is just as much narcissistically abusive as it is not. Okay. Stats last night showed that 50% of all people, and that's just report some form of psychologically abusive aggression towards them. 50%, right? I'm going to use a parable in the Bible. Are you a Bible person? Do you go to church, or have you been at church?
I have been. I've read the Bible several times. I have been. I'm not currently attending, but I'm fairly well versed.
Sure. So there's a great parable taught by Jesus in the Newer Testament. He was talking about the world, okay, and he said, and actually, he's talking about he's talking about the world basically, and he gave this image where he said, "This is what it's like, guys. It's like a farmer who went out and planted good seed in the farm, and then late at night, an enemy of the farmer came and planted tares or weeds, whatever you want to call them." So that in the time where they were coming up, they were being harvested, there was both good wheat and there was also tares and weeds, and they grew together. And the workers of the farmer ran to him and said, hey, look at all these weeds and tares growing with the good wheat. Do you want us to go and take it out? And he said, no. Let them grow together, and lest when you tear them out, you're going to rip up with the good wheat as well. Let them grow to the time of harvest, and then we will go through and we will separate the good from the bad. And we will roll up the bad and burn them, right? We'll roll up the weeds and burn them. What is this parable telling us? It's saying that basically there's an equal amount in this farm. If you consider this world a farm, there's an equal amount of good growing with bad. It's an equal amounts. There's for every one of you watching and every one of you on the channel right now, walking around, there is an equal, but in a very negative way. There's a weed, right? And so it's all over. It's all over. There's you can't escape it. And so that's really what I was trying to say. We have to stop looking at this world as, well, most people are inherently good. I think that's typically what people like to believe, because that's what we were taught for a very long time. Look at the good in everybody. And it's this narcissistic abuse that we cannot close our eyes now, even if we wanted to. I made this video talking about taking the red pill, and I'll be honest with you, it seems like this day and age, that red pill, somebody said that before, that red pill is being shoved down our throat. Wake up. You're surrounded by abusive people.
It's out of control.
It's out of control. And
it's out of control.
You better start learning how to protect yourself. And the key in protecting yourself is boundaries. First and foremost, we've got to stop and quit the old ways of saying, well, oh, I just met you. We've known each other for a month. Okay, let's go have sex. No. Those days are gone. And I know there's a lot of people that are like, well, I miss that. How do you get close? And I want to kiss, and I want to hug, and I want to cuddle. And, nowadays, enter at your own risk, because you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what dingbat you're dealing with. who is going to feel entitled the moment you invite them over to watch Netflix and chill, and before you know it, they're slashing your tires because you didn't hang out with them the next week or something. It's crazy. And so this is really a time, it's a day and age where we really have to know that we know that we know who and what we're dealing with. Those hippie days that we all thought, especially you're from California, right? So my theory in California, California still has California is the last place to still kind of have that hippie mentality. Free love, man. Let's all just have free love. And and I get that now because I moved to the Midwest, and I got to tell you, the Midwest culture is very much different. People in the Midwest seem a little bit more, not a lot more, but a little bit more standoffish, conservative. You have to get to know people in their mind. There's a little bit, who are you? There's not as much of a flirt game, I guess, whatever you want to call it. There's definitely some cultural differences, right? People here are a little bit more hardened. They deal more with bad weather and stuff like that. People in California, I know because I was in California.
We had some bad weather. We got some bad weather this past month, though. If you've been watching the news, it's been out of control. We've been having mudslides and landslides.
Yeah, well, I saw some of that, but we get ice storms and and snow for weeks, and it's below zero, and so really it's just a cultural thing, and it's something that you're just going to have to learn, these boundaries. Be very careful, because all you have is yourself, your health, your mental health. That has to come first in your life.
It knocked me off my kilter. I mean, it really did. It was
right.
I'm like, my gosh, here I'm dating this guy. Everything's going great. Everything's feeling good, and then he kind of very early, I'm like, wow, that was kind of early for him to ask for an exclusive commitment. He knows that I'm not going to go running off with another man. I already told him about my morals in the front load and told him, hey, I'm not one to go running off with different men. And, I'm not going to withhold from you. So really, if you're going to ask me for a relationship, it's going to be because you really want the relationship.
Right.
And he asked kind of early. And I thought, wow, that's kind of early, but okay, we had the talk. And it was within 2 weeks of the very first time something came up for me to have an opportunity to kind of publicly do something for him as his new girlfriend. Everything went to heck in a handbag, and it was just that he was looking at the exclusivity as a one-way street. Like,
sure.
I'm the one that's supposed to be exclusive and be at home while he's out lollygag and do whatever the heck he wants. And the fact that I did the simple thing of he got called into work on an emergency on one of the weather alerts because he worked for public works in a town near me. And I brought him the dinner I had planned to make him. I wrapped it up and brought it for him. And an average guy would go, God, thank you so much. But a guy who's maybe running game at work behind his new girlfriend's back is not going to flow that way. And within about a week, he completely ghosted me. So within 3 weeks of asking me for an exclusive relationship, and within 3 months of meeting, this guy completely discarded me. And it felt like, when you go to a pizzeria and they have those games for the children where they have these claws that come down and pick up the plush toy and the child can try to win a plush toy.
Right.
It felt like those claws around my heart ripping out from my chest. It was the worst feeling. I'm like, this is the first time I've let my guard down for a guy. The worst time I've let my guard down for a guy in 10 years. I've been dating guys, and I've run into some monsters. There's guys that kind of ghost and hoover, or guys that, are inconsistent, or guys that don't respect boundaries, or guys that aren't exactly who they say they are, or they weren't forthright about their relationship status. And I've run the gamut with guys, but I haven't let any of them in. None of them in.
Except
the very
this one.
first time I let a guy in.
Yeah.
The very first time in 10 years, I let a guy in, and this is what he does to me.
Right.
And it's like, oh my God.
It's heartbreaking.
It's disheartening. I'm a nice girl. I'm that girl that'll drive 2 hours in a rainstorm with your dinner because you got called into work. That's me. I don't deserve this.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No. And this
It's
is
so
why
frustrating.
it is frustrating, but this is why you have to not let your guard down until you know that you know that you know who and what you're dealing with. That's the key, right? Because
It's really heartbreaking.
there's a lot at stake. There's a lot at stake. So there
Oh,
is.
it completely derailed me and
Yeah,
completely derailed my focus. I mean, I've got a business that's going full board, and I have a child I'm raising,
sure.
and I'm doing great. I in so many regards, and this totally knocked me off my focus. I ended up at my therapist's office, and
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm a mess. I'm an
Used and
absolute
yeah.
mess,
Nobody likes to be used
and
and lied to
and
and right.
and gaslighted. I
You
mean,
gaslighted.
literally gaslighted. He was trying to convince me that my dinner I dropped off for him was a bomb threat, and now the sheriffs are going to come talk to him. And it was so histrionic and ridiculous. I
Right.
even have a friend who is a social worker for Orange County Mental Health Services, and she read the text and she goes, "This guy's mental." She's like, "You can't go out with him again. Don't even, if he tries to call you or anything, don't even respond to his text, because this guy's unhinged. This is just not even normal." And I everything was perfectly fine until the truth of my presence came to be, and I
Right.
started showing an investment in him as his new girlfriend.
Yeah.
That's when it started,
Right.
because obviously this
Right.
person wasn't prepared to back up that commitment on his
Right.
end. And wow, it's like the very first time in 10 years
It's a lot.
I agreed to
It's
be
a
with his
lot.
girlfriend.
It is. It is. Well, listen, I want to thank you for calling, and we're over time, and so I want to wrap this phone call up. But I'm glad that you called. I'm glad that you're here and sharing your story with us, and just being able to be open and talk about it. Right? There's healing. It does
Yeah,
take time, and it's going to be about setting good boundaries in the future. Okay.
definitely.
Right
Okay,
on.
thank you so much.
Thank you for calling. Appreciate it. All right. Have a good night. Guys, I want to thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up. We've been going for over an hour, and I really appreciate all of you who have hung tight with me here on the Royal We live tonight, following the lesson on addiction. Hopefully, you guys were able to get something out of that, and also hopefully through the chat and through all of the help that you guys offer for each other. Appreciate you guys being here. If you tried to call, you can call in tomorrow night, 10 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, and I want to thank you guys for being here and join us again. Like I said, tomorrow night, 10 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to try to go for just 30 minutes, guys, for a half-hour show. I do believe that these longer episodes do somehow affect YouTube and algorithms and things of that sort. So I want to thank you guys for being here. Tomorrow night, we're going to plan on 30 minutes. I'm going to shorten the lesson, and we'll get into phone calls a whole lot earlier, guys, a lot sooner. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you tomorrow right here, 10 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Check out the description box to find out links for merchandise, for the course, and all that good stuff right below this video. All right, have a great night, everybody.